There's a specific moment in your life when everything changes, not because the world shifts around you, but because something inside you finally breaks open, and in that fracture, you find something you've been searching for without even knowing it. Marcus Aurelius, an emperor who ruled the most powerful empire on earth, discovered this truth alone in his tent, writing by candlelight. He wasn't writing for history. He was writing to survive his own mind, and what he left behind might be the only thing that can save yours. Right now, in this very moment, your mind is at war with itself. You know this feeling. The constant noise, the replaying of conversations that happened years ago, the anxiety about futures that may never come, the weight of expectations you never asked for. You wake up tired, you go to sleep overwhelmed, and somewhere in between you're just trying to hold it together. But what if I told you that almost 2,000 years ago a man sat in the exact same prison you're sitting in now? Not a prison of stone and iron, but a prison of thought. And he found a way out. Not through escape, not through distraction, but through something far more radical: transformation. Marcus Aurelius never intended for anyone to read his words. His meditations were private, personal, raw. They were the survival notes of a man drowning in responsibility, grief, betrayal, and the unbearable weight of power. Yet somehow, his whispers to himself across the centuries have become the loudest voice of wisdom we have. Today, you're going to discover why his ancient mind can heal your modern one, why his struggles are your struggles, and why the path he walked through darkness is the same path waiting for you right now. Before we begin this journey together, I want to ask something simple of you. If this resonates, if something here touches the part of you that's been waiting to be understood, leave a like. Subscribe so we can continue exploring these depths together. Comment below and tell me which teaching hit you hardest. And if you know someone trapped in their own mind, share this with them. Sometimes the greatest gift we can give is permission to transform. Now let's step into the mind of an emperor who is more human than any of us dare to be. You've been taught that suffering is the problem, that pain is the enemy, that if you could just fix everything around you, silence every critic, control every outcome, then finally you'd be at peace. But Marcus Aurelius discovered something that shattered this illusion completely. He discovered that your suffering isn't happening to you. It's happening because of you. Not because you're weak, not because you're broken, but because you've been living inside a story about reality instead of reality itself. Imagine for a moment that you're standing in front of a mirror, but you're not looking at yourself. You're looking at the reflection and believing that the reflection is you. You spend your entire life trying to change the reflection, trying to make it smile, trying to make it look confident, trying to make it appear worthy, but the reflection never changes in the way you need it to, because you're not addressing what's actually creating it. You're at war with an image instead of the source. This is what Marcus called the disturbance. And it's the root of almost every form of suffering you experience. He wrote in his private journal, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment." Read that again. Slowly. The pain is not the thing. The pain is your relationship to the thing, and that relationship exists entirely in your mind. You've been carrying the weight of events that are already over. You've been suffering from the opinions of people who don't even think about you anymore. You've been terrified of outcomes that exist only as possibilities in your imagination. And all of it, every single ounce of it, is optional. Not easy, but optional. Marcus knew this because he lived it. He lost children. He faced betrayal from his closest advisors. He led armies into wars he didn't want to fight. He was surrounded by people who wanted things from him but never truly saw him. And yet he chose not to let any of that define his inner state. He chose to see reality clearly, without the distortion of his fears and desires. This is the first ancient teaching. Your pain is not your prison. Your perception is. And the moment you understand this, truly understand it, everything begins to shift. Because you realize you've been holding the key the entire time. You just didn't know what door it opened. Now let's go deeper. Because understanding that your perception creates your suffering is only the beginning. The real question is, why do you keep choosing the perception that hurts you? This is where Marcus Aurelius becomes not just a philosopher, but a psychologist. He understood something about the human mind that most of us spend our entire lives running from. We are addicted to control, and this addiction is destroying us from the inside out. Think about the last time you felt truly anxious, not just worried, but consumed. What were you really afraid of? If you look closely beneath every layer of anxiety, you'll find the same core fear, the fear that something will happen that you cannot control, that life will unfold in a way you didn't plan, that people will behave in ways you didn't predict, that the future will not match the image in your mind. And so you grasp, you plan, you overthink, you replay scenarios, you try to predict every possible outcome so you can prepare for it, prevent it, control it. But here's the brutal truth Marcus discovered. The more you try to control, the less control you actually have, because you're spending all your energy trying to manage an illusion. Marcus used a powerful metaphor to explain this. He said that trying to control external events is like a sailor trying to control the wind. You can scream at the wind, you can curse it, you can demand it blow in the direction you want. But the wind doesn't care. The wind will do what the wind does. The only real power you have is over the sail. You can adjust your sail. You can change your direction. You can work with the wind instead of against it. Your mind is the sail, and every single day you're choosing how to position it in response to the winds that blow through your life. But most people never realize they have this power. They spend their entire lives screaming at the wind, exhausted and defeated, wondering why nothing ever changes. And they never look at the sail. Marcus wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This isn't just philosophy. This is practical psychology. This is the difference between living as a victim of circumstance and living as a conscious creator of your internal experience. When someone criticizes you, you can't control their words, but you can control whether you internalize those words as truth or see them as their projection. When you face failure, you can't control the outcome, but you can control whether you interpret that failure as evidence of your inadequacy or as information for growth. When loss comes, and it will come, you can't control the loss, but you can control whether you let that loss define you or refine you. This is the second ancient teaching. You are not powerless. You've just been aiming your power at the wrong target. And once you redirect that power inward, once you start working with the only thing you actually control, your mind, you stop being a passenger in your own life. You become the navigator, not of the destination, but of the journey. So now we arrive at the place where most people turn back, because what comes next requires something almost impossible: surrender. Not the surrender of defeat, but the surrender of resistance. The willingness to stop fighting reality and start dancing with it. Marcus Aurelius learned this lesson the hard way. He was an emperor, which means he had more power than almost anyone on earth. And yet, he was completely powerless over the things that mattered most. He couldn't save his children from illness. He couldn't prevent betrayal. He couldn't stop the empire from slowly crumbling. He couldn't even control his own body as it aged and weakened. And in that powerlessness, he found freedom. This sounds like a paradox, doesn't it? How can powerlessness lead to freedom? But this is the heart of Stoic transformation. When you finally truly accept that you cannot control most of what happens to you, you stop wasting energy trying, and all that energy you were burning in resistance suddenly becomes available for something else: presence. Think about a river. When water encounters a rock, it doesn't stop. It doesn't get angry. It doesn't demand the rock move. It simply flows around it, over it, through it. The water doesn't waste a single drop of energy resisting the rock, and because of that, nothing can stop it. Eventually, the water shapes the rock, not through force, through consistency, through acceptance of what is. You are the water. Your life circumstances are the rocks, and you've been trying to move the rocks with your mind, exhausting yourself, depleting yourself, convincing yourself that if you just think hard enough, Worry hard enough, control hard enough, the rocks will move. But Marcus teaches you something different. He teaches you to flow. Not in a passive way, not in a way that means you don't take action or make choices, but in a way that means you stop adding unnecessary suffering to necessary pain. He wrote, "Accept whatever comes to you woven in the pattern of your destiny for what could more aptly fit your needs." This is radical acceptance. This is the understanding that everything in your life, even the painful parts, even the parts you didn't choose, is here for a reason. Not because some cosmic force is testing you, but because this is simply what is. And what is your only starting point. You cannot transform from where you wish you were. You can only transform from where you are. And where you are right now in this exact moment is perfect. Not because it feels good, but because it's real. And reality is the only place transformation can happen. This is the third ancient teaching. Resistance is the enemy of peace. Acceptance is the beginning of power. When you stop fighting what is, you stop exhausting yourself. And in that stillness, in that space of acceptance, something miraculous happens. You start to see clearly. You start to see options you couldn't see before. You start to feel emotions you were too defended to feel. You start to access wisdom that was buried under all your resistance. Acceptance doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop suffering unnecessarily. And from that place of reduced suffering, you can actually do something meaningful. You can actually change. You can actually become who you're meant to be. Now let me share with you something most people never discover about Marcus Aurelius. Something hidden in the space between his words. A lesson so subtle that you can read his meditations 100 times and still miss it. Marcus was obsessed with one question: how should I live? Not in some abstract philosophical sense, but in the immediate, practical, moment-to-moment sense. He asked this question every single day, and his answer was always the same: with virtue. But here's what most people misunderstand about virtue. They think it means being good, being moral, following rules. But that's not what Marcus meant. To him, virtue meant alignment. It meant living in harmony with your true nature. It meant acting from your highest self instead of your reactive self. He believed that inside every human being is a divine spark, a piece of universal reason, a part of you that is connected to something far greater than your individual ego. And when you live from that place, when you make decisions from that place, when you speak and act from that place, you become unstoppable. Not because you're stronger than everyone else, but because you're no longer at war with yourself. Marcus wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." This isn't a command, it's an invitation to stop performing, stop pretending, stop trying to convince the world of your worth, and instead just be. Be honest, be kind, be courageous, be present, not for applause, not for validation, but because that's who you actually are when you strip away all the fear and conditioning. And here's the hidden lesson. When you live this way, aligned with your true nature, life starts to work differently. Not because you're lucky, not because the universe rewards good behavior, but because you're no longer creating unnecessary suffering for yourself. You're no longer sabotaging yourself with fear and doubt. You're no longer making decisions from a place of ego and defense. You're just being, and being is enough. Marcus also understood something profound about death. He talked about it constantly, not in a morbid way, but in a way that gave his life urgency and meaning. He knew that every single moment he wasted worrying about things he couldn't control was a moment he'd never get back. He knew that one day, probably sooner than he wanted, he'd take his last breath. And in that moment, none of the things he worried about would matter. None of the opinions, none of the failures, none of the fears. The only thing that would matter is how he lived. Whether he was true to himself, whether he treated people with compassion, whether he used his time wisely, whether he left the world better than he found it. This is the fourth ancient teaching. You are going to die. And that's not depressing. That's liberating. Because when you truly accept your mortality, you stop wasting time. You stop tolerating mediocrity in your relationships. You stop putting off the things that matter. You stop living in a future that doesn't exist. And you start living in the only moment you'll ever have. This one. Marcus didn't fear death. He feared wasting life. And there's a vast difference between those two fears. One paralyzes you, the other activates you. So now the question becomes, how do you actually live this? How do you take ancient wisdom and apply it to your modern, chaotic, overwhelming life? Let me give you practical tools, real practices that Marcus himself used, practices you can start today. First, the morning ritual. Marcus would begin every day by reminding himself of the challenges he'd face. He'd say to himself, "Today I will meet people who are rude, ungrateful, and selfish. But I will not be disturbed by them, because I understand that they're acting from their own suffering, and I have a choice in how I respond." You can do this too. Before you even get out of bed, take 60 seconds to prepare your mind. Remind yourself that today will have challenges. People will disappoint you. Things will go wrong. And that's okay. Because you're not trying to control the day. You're trying to control your response to the day. Second, the perception check. Throughout the day, when something upsets you, pause, just for 3 seconds, and ask yourself, is this thing bad, or is my judgment making it bad? Most of the time, you'll realize it's the judgment, and in that realization you have space. Space to choose a different response. Space to let go. Space to be free. Third, the evening reflection. Marcus would end every day by reviewing his actions, not to judge himself harshly, but to learn, to see where he acted from his highest self and where he acted from fear or ego, to acknowledge his mistakes without shame, to celebrate his growth without pride. You can do this in 2 minutes before sleep. Just ask yourself, where was I today? Where did I show up as my best self? Where did I fall back into old patterns? What can I learn from this? This isn't about perfection, it's about awareness. And awareness is the seed of all transformation. Fourth, the practice of amor fati. This is a Latin phrase that means love of fate. It's the practice of not just accepting what happens, but actually loving it, seeing it as necessary, seeing it as exactly what you need for your growth. When something difficult happens, instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" try asking, "What is this teaching me?" This simple shift transforms you from victim to student, and students grow. Victims stagnate. Fifth, the discipline of journaling. Marcus didn't write his meditations for anyone else, he wrote them for himself. To process, to clarify, to understand, and you can do the same. You don't need to write perfectly. You don't need to write for an audience. You just need to write honestly. Get your thoughts out of your head and onto paper. Because once they're outside of you, you can see them clearly. And what you can see clearly, you can change. Finally, the practice of memento mori. Remember death, not in a dark way, but in a way that makes life precious. Every morning, remind yourself, I will die one day. This day is not guaranteed. This moment is a gift. And then ask, if this were my last day, would I waste it worrying about what people think? Would I spend it angry at things I can't control? Would I hold back love, kindness, truth? The answer is always no. And in that answer, you find your instructions for how to live. This is the fifth ancient teaching. Philosophy is useless unless it's practiced. Wisdom is empty unless it's embodied. Marcus didn't just think about these ideas. He lived them. In the middle of war, in the middle of political chaos, in the middle of personal tragedy. And if he could do it then, you can do it now. I want you to close your eyes for a moment and feel something. Feel the weight you've been carrying, the expectations, the regrets, the fears about who you should be and what you should have done. Feel all of it. Don't push it away. Don't judge it. Just feel it. Now I want you to understand something that might change everything. That weight is not you. Those fears are not you. That voice in your head that tells you you're not enough, that you're behind, that you're broken, that's not you either. You are the awareness beneath all of that. You are the presence that notices the thoughts, the space that holds the emotions, the stillness that exists even in chaos. Marcus Aurelius knew this. He knew that his title, his power, his achievements, none of that was him. He was the quiet observer beneath it all, the part that couldn't be touched by success or failure, the part that remained whole even when everything around him fell apart. And that same part exists in you. It's been there your whole life, waiting, watching, hoping you'd remember. You've spent so long trying to fix yourself, trying to become someone better, someone worthy, someone enough. But what if you're already whole? What if there's nothing to fix? What if the only thing you need to do is remember who you actually are beneath all the stories you've been telling yourself? This is the deepest teaching of all, the one Marcus circled around in every meditation, the one he whispered to himself in his darkest moments. You are not your circumstances. You are not your mistakes. You are not even your thoughts. You are the eternal awareness that experiences all of those things. And that awareness is indestructible. Nothing in your life can take that from you. Not loss, not failure, not rejection, not even death. Because the awareness doesn't die, it just is. And when you connect with that part of yourself, even for a moment, everything changes. The fear doesn't disappear, but it loses its power. The pain doesn't vanish, but it stops defining you. The chaos doesn't calm, but you stop being swept away by it. You become the mountain instead of the storm. And mountains don't move. They just stand, present, solid, unshaken. So here we are, at the end of this journey through ancient wisdom and modern suffering. And I want to leave you with one final thought. Marcus Aurelius never wanted to be famous. He never wanted his private journals to become some of the most influential texts in human history. He was just a man trying to survive his own mind, trying to find peace in an impossible situation, trying to live with integrity when the world demanded compromise. And yet, 2,000 years later, his whispers still echo. Because the truth he discovered isn't bound by time or culture or circumstance, it's universal, it's eternal, and it's yours. You don't need to be an emperor to access this wisdom. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to be willing. Willing to look at your mind honestly. Willing to question your perceptions. Willing to let go of control. Willing to accept what is. Willing to live from your highest self instead of your most afraid self. That's all. Just willingness. And if you can find that willingness, even in the smallest way, everything starts to shift. Not overnight, not magically, but gradually, steadily, inevitably. You begin to breathe easier. You begin to sleep deeper. You begin to feel more present, more alive, more you. And one day, you'll look back and realize that the prison you thought was permanent was actually just a door you forgot you could open. And Marcus Aurelius, that ancient emperor writing by candlelight in a tent thousands of years ago, handed you the key. Thank you for taking this journey with me. If this touched something in you, let me know in the comments. Share which teaching resonated most. And remember, transformation isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you've always been. Until next time, stay present, stay curious, and stay true.